In episode 7, the girls are reeling from the loss of the baby, nobody more so than Shauna. She's got her dead child wrapped up in a blanket, and she's just kind of holding it. Problem, too, is the girls can't leave because there's a horrible snowstorm that has kept them inside. But once the snow does stop and they open the door, they can then go outside, which Taissa tells Shauna, it'll be good for you. She's able to finally bury her child, which is really emotional for her. As the girls go outside, Ben stays inside, and he's been seeing visions of his boyfriend from back home. But this particular vision is scary, because his boyfriend gets a phone call, and when he answers it, he says he isn't ready, while looking right at Ben. He then hangs up, and he says, "We need to talk. Sit down." His boyfriend then says, "Ben, you have to go. I mean, you had to know that this wasn't meant to be your hiding place. You know what? It doesn't matter. What does matter is you're no longer welcome here." He screams, "Paul, what did I do?" And his boyfriend says, "You didn't do anything. It's just time." Paul then opens the front door to leave, and Ben goes after him. He yells, "Paul!" at the top of his lungs. But the only people that are there are Taissa and Van. So they ask him, "Coach, are you all right?" And he snaps out of it, realizing that Paul isn't there. And he says, Yeah, I'm fine." One of the people that does not see Ben walk outside is Misty. She's with Mari and Akila, although she's kind of hanging back quite a bit. She's eavesdropping on their conversation. And Akila praises Misty for being so calm in that moment and trying to save the baby. But Mari, she's really never liked Misty, and she thinks that she's weird as hell. She also finds it amazing that Misty has yet to form a search party for her, quote, best friend, Crystal, which is making Mari think that maybe Misty had something to do with it. So as soon as everybody gets back, Misty puts on quite the acting performance, telling everybody that while everybody's still sad about the baby, they can't forget about Crystal. They need to go searching after her. A couple of people wonder if that's the trade-off they made, the baby and Crystal for the snow stopping. But Lottie says, no, that's not how it works. It doesn't trade and haggle, the wilderness hears us. It gave us what we wanted. Shauna lived. They all then get into a circle holding hands, and Lottie says, "We hear the wilderness and it hears us." Everybody repeating after Lottie. After this little ceremony, they then get ready to go out searching for Crystal. Right before Misty does leave, she overhears two of her teammates talking about how it wouldn't be the worst thing in the world if they found Crystal dead because they would have food. Now, neither of them want to say that. They're both hiding behind the whole, well, I mean, obviously we want Crystal to be found. But they're already thinking of eating her, although neither wants to say it. One person who will not be going to search for Crystal is Shauna. She's still reeling from the baby, and when Van takes off one of the sheets that they were using, revealing that blanket that Lottie had made for the baby that is covered in blood, all Shauna can think about is the vision she had of her teammates eating. So she grabs the blanket and throws it in the fire, hoping to burn the memory out. But most of the teammates, though, they go out looking for Crystal. The first place they head is to that hollowed-out tree. Lottie starts doing some weird Lottie stuff and then tells the groups to break off. She holds Taissa back and says, "You found Javi. Maybe you can find Crystal too?" Taissa, though, says, "I don't think so. That wasn't me. And ever since I've been doing your circles, I haven't been sleepwalking. And that other me that knew where Javi was, I think she's gone." Lottie, however, says she's not gone, Ty. And that's a good thing. And then she walks off to try to go find Crystal. Misty had gone off with Akila and Mari. And that's because she really wants to sell to them that she didn't kill Crystal. She puts on the waterworks. She puts on quite a show. Akila tells her that she can go back because she's clearly too emotional for this. But Mari definitely has her suspicions. Misty, however, does not go back. She goes to try to find the body of Crystal. She does feel horrible about what happened, and she doesn't want to let her friends eat her. But when she searches the snow, there's nothing. Crystal's body is gone. When she gets back up to the top of the hill, she's surprised because Ben's there, staring at the edge. Ben's decided that he can't live like this anymore, and he's ready to go over the edge. Misty jumps into action, begging him to stop, walk it back, but he's pretty set in his ways. In a last-ditch effort, she tells Ben that once they get home, she's going to tell the world that he made the moves on her, that he initiated their relationship, that he initiated relationships with all the girls. But that isn't working either. And then, as one last-ditch try, she says, "I'll tell the whole world you're gay." Ben, though, looks over at her and says, "Tell him." Right before Ben is going to jump over the edge to his death, Misty cries her eyes out, apologizing, saying she tried to save the baby. And she can't deal with this. She can't have any more deaths on her hands. So she pleads with him to step back from that ledge. And he does. Everybody then heads back to the cabin for nightfall, and Misty is humming Lightning Crashes by Live, and for whatever reason, Shauna snaps, yelling at Misty, "Why are you singing that? Where did you hear that song?" Misty doesn't really know, and she says, "I think Crystal was singing it," but then all of a sudden, Shauna goes off and decks her. They try holding Shauna back. She ends up biting Van, and then Lottie gets in the way. She tells Shauna to let it out. Shauna punches Lottie. And Lottie turns to Travis and says, "Take Javi to the bedroom." She then looks right at Shauna and says, "Let it out. We need you, Shauna." And Shauna beats the crap out of Lottie. I mean, she beats her into a bloody pulp. It looks like Lottie is wearing a red mask at this point. Her face is bloody, bruised, but somehow she's still breathing. Now, present day, the girls have all convened up at this commune that Lottie has started. Lottie's excited to see her friends, but she's also ready to introduce them to treatment. Van, Thaisa, and Shauna, they're a little hesitant on it. But it's actually Natalie who convinces them to go through with it, saying how it really did make an impact on her. And they know that out of all of them, it would be Natalie who would be the most resistant to this kind of thing. So they all choose different methods of therapy. For Shauna, she has to take care of a goat, which she doesn't want to do because she feels like the entire day she's going to get attached to this thing and then she's going to be forced to kill it. She tells Lottie that she doesn't want to end up killing this thing, and Lottie says, "Well, you're not going to have to." But then she starts having a breakthrough. She tells Lottie that she's emotional because she's kind of kept Callie at arm's length her entire life because she's worried that she's going to die. And this trauma dates back to losing her child in the woods. But Lottie's there for her. The good news is Shauna is getting something out of this therapy. As for Thaisa, she was tasked with painting a wall with a very tiny paintbrush. And she finds Lottie and says, "Yeah, I'm not really getting anything out of this. I came here because I'm sleepwalking again." Lottie tells Thaisa, that other you, she always had a deep connection to the wilderness. And she had wisdom, too. And I know that she wants to hurt your family, but maybe she doesn't. Maybe that other you just doesn't want to be suppressed. She's still with you, Ty. Ty then goes off and finds Van. Van didn't do any therapy. She just went to grab a bottle of booze from her truck. After a very brief conversation, the two start making out pretty furiously, but they stop themselves. Thaisa starts apologizing, saying, "I've thought about this, but it's just going to be a long road before we or I." And Van cuts her off and says, "Ty, I don't have time. I've got cancer, like the really bad kind of cancer. I've got weeks to live." Ty gets really mad that Van didn't reach out, but Van says, "What were you going to do? I mean, send me an edible arrangement? Were you going to message me on Facebook? The reality is, Ty, we don't know each other. I wasn't going to burden you with that." Misty then interrupts the conversation and calls both of them in. Unlike Van, she did go through her therapy reluctantly. She was put into a sensory deprivation tank. Basically, you just kind of float there in the darkness, but she definitely got something out of it. She started imagining her life with Caligula, her pet bird. She asked Caligula, "When people look at me, do they just see someone desperate for love who's a murderer?" And this bird helps her realize that's not the case at all. As soon as she gets out of there, she immediately rushed off to go call Walter, apologizing for how she acted. She tells him she never should have pushed him away, and then she hangs up. It does seem like, though, she just recorded a voice message. She didn't actually talk to him. But when she ends up meeting up with the rest of her teammates, she's in a great mood. The one person who's missing is Lottie. Lottie went to go have a therapy session. Even though she was going like once every 6 months, this is becoming a very routine habit for her. She tells her therapist that all of her teammates being here, she feels something in her body that she hasn't felt in years. It's deep and it's primal. And the scary part is it feels great. The therapist tells her, "When does self-repression help us? You just told one of your friends the same thing. I mean, maybe you're having this feeling because when you're with these women, you were your truest self. So why don't you embrace it again?" And Lottie tells her therapist, "We hurt each other." The therapist, however, asks her, "Is there anything of value in this life that doesn't come with risk?" Lottie's kind of surprised and asks the therapist, "Are you saying what I think you're saying?" But then all of a sudden, the therapist isn't the therapist. It's that person from the woods with the deer headdress on. And she asks Lottie, "You tell me, does a hunt that has no violence feed anyone?" Lottie is super freaked out, and when she snaps out of it, she realizes that she's been alone in that room the entire time. She wasn't talking to her therapist. She was talking to whatever it was they brought back from the wilderness. So when she finds her teammates, she tells them, "I think it's best that you guys go." But they convince her to stay. They drink some booze throughout the night, they laugh, they dance, and then Shauna gets a phone call from Jeff. Jeff's a little freaked out because he tells Shauna, "The police, they found the body of Adam. They found his remains." And that's big trouble. Thank you so much for checking out this recap. Please consider subscribing to the channel and subscribing to my Patreon. Hit thumbs up if you liked it. Smash that thumbs down button if you thought it sucked. If you left a comment, I don't get back to you. I usually don't check the comments unless they're like a super comment. Also, if you don't see the next video up on the end screen, not to worry. It'll be up in a day or two.